Welcome, Ecom Logistics Nation. We're thrilled to be coming to you live from the heart of Atlanta at Modex 2024, right here at the Georgia World Congress Center. A shout out to our sponsor, G&P Construction, your go-to provider for comprehensive turnkey material handling and solutions in both logistics and commercial needs. We are truly grateful for the support.
The machines are really executing what the software is doing, and the magic is in the software. Right. And so that's number one. Number two, we connect to, software or robotic software is basically automating and making things faster. And it doesn't necessarily need to involve a machine. It doesn't have to have an articulated arm robot. It can just be a mechanical system, right? So really what it's about is unlocking sensor data and putting it into this, what we see as us being the central nervous system.
Welcome, Ecom Logistics Nation. We are excited to be here again at Modex recording live. And we've got our good friends from SVT Robotics, two of which we just caught up with, and they saved my behind a few years ago. So really excited to have them with us. As a way of getting started, we're going to have them introduce themselves. Nick, would you go first, please?
Yeah, Nick Leonard. I head up our product group here at SVT. Been in the industry since 2010. Most were software controls. Did about a $500 million worth of automation deployment during that time, mostly a large-scale integrator. Took a small stint outside the industry doing software for a real estate website for a while. You may have saw on the Super Bowl ad, so homes.com.
Yeah.
Was there for a while. But then came back to the industry, just couldn't stay away from it, right? So been at SVT the last 3 years or so, leading the product team.
Wow. I hear good things, and we're going to get into SVT a little bit, but as far as product is concerned, that's what we keep hearing about from a SVT perspective, at how good the product happens to be. So
yeah, we have a great team. It's exciting to see all the stuff that they're coming up with, and we have a fantastic team.
Yeah, someone actually once said it's a whole bunch of nerds there that just they have a hypothesis and they just keep going down it, and it's literally the math and science behind actually making everything hum. So I'm super excited.
That's right. Top to bottom. We got the leadership team as well.
Exactly.
It's good.
Yeah. A lot of Star Wars references and all sorts of stuff. So
there we go.
Total dork.
AK, would you mind going next?
Yeah, absolutely. So AK Schultz, CEO and founder, started this 5.5 years ago, which is kind of crazy to me. It's unbelievable. Tons of experience. I've been doing this for 20 years now, and not quite, I think, shy of $1 billion deployed of automation, worked on really big stuff, right? So, but the problem that I saw was there's this like monster under the bed that most people don't know about, they don't believe, right? And it really is this inability for things to connect, and the amount of time that's wasted on connecting, but also like writing Word documents on how to talk to each other for 8 weeks, right? It's an unbelievable amount of waste. And so we just decided, all right, we got to solve this interoperability problem. And just for the record, we're SVT Robotics, but we are a molecule-free company. We make no robots. We are purely software. And our whole goal is to de-friction the industry and then unlock the capabilities of data and monitoring. And for us, like, the connectivity is a thing, kind of what we're known for. But for us, it's a feature.
Yeah.
It's a feature to get to what you really want to do. And that's, essentially create transparency on your data and be able to use it in real time in production. And that's, actually T in SVT stands for transparency. So,
wow. Oh, you know what? Actually, what does SVT stand for?
So it stands for simplicity, velocity, and transparency. We want to just make things simpler, allow extreme speed to value, and then take the black boxes and turn them into transparent boxes so that, you paid for the data. You might as well be able to use it, right?
Yeah. So like every business, right? Like the catalyst, the aha moment. You said you saw a problem in the industry. Is there a story to this problem? Like maybe if we rewind a little bit more and kind of talk about what were you doing before that actually brought you to that point to say, what if?
So what I would say is there's like 15 years of scar tissue. But then, it all kind of amasses, but then there's this moment, right? And it happened at a electric vehicle factory, but it was actually an amazing experience, right? But one of the things is we were there with a lot of our competitors, And we always knew that our software was a kind of a walled garden, right? But it turns out like everybody's like that. And so once the hardest bit was getting everything connected. Like, the installation was tough, but the connectivity was brutal. And so I'm sitting there on the mezzanine, and I think, man, like someone's got to de-friction this. And that moment was not like when I decided to form the company and do this, but it was like this crucible of understanding of what the real problem statement in this market was.
And when you say connectivity, right? Like we are talking about the word, it reads robotics, right? But there is more than robotics, other equipment. I recently saw someone actually sent me the article, be like, Leonard, did you see this? And it was Barrett Logistics, great guys, friends of ours.
Great team over there.
Launched their CMC automation with you. Now, that technically is not a robot.
No,
that's great.
So it's connectivity across the board. Like a little bit more like to what kind of connectivity are we talking?
So first of all, for me, robotics is software.
Right.
Yes. The machines are, I'm a former mechanical engineer, right? So like, I'm not dissing, but like the machines are really executing what the software is doing, and the magic is in the software, right? And so that's number one. Number two, we connect to, software or robotic software is basically automating and making things faster. And it doesn't necessarily need to involve a machine. It doesn't have to have an articulated arm robot. It can just be a mechanical system, right? So really what it's about is unlocking sensor data and putting it into this, what we see as us being the central nervous system that connects sensors, machines like limbs, and then the brain, right? Which is a stack of from PLC through traditional WMS software. And now with the explosion of AI, like that's the next it's going to be the next journey for everyone, right?
I love it. And there is two layers in there, right? You got the connectivity, and then there is the logic, that execution logic. So maybe a little bit on so you handle both.
So a little bit, right? So first of all, the connectivity, when we think about connectivity, people think about writing interfaces, and they say, well, writing interfaces is easy. That's one thing. But writing interfaces in a common framework so the data is normal with zero technical debt, that's insanely hard, right? And I'm going to turn to this guy because this is like the man behind it all, right?
Yeah. So when we look at how we do connections, the biggest difference for us is we're not asking anybody to change, right? We don't want the technologies that are involved. So you mentioned, you mentioned technologies that are maybe not robotics. Maybe it's a timekeeping system. You have Kronos in your building and you want that integrated to your labor management system because you can get that data, right? Our system allows you to connect to any existing API out there and doesn't ask them to change their format. And then we normalize that connection like a Rosetta Stone between systems. So now what you're really trying to get, you're trying to get login data or pick tasks or orders. And so what we do is take the existing API, normalize that through one of our connectors into a common data structure, and then we can rapidly exchange that information with other softbots in the environment.
We're not trying to be a WMS or a WS.
Are you an iPass?
Yeah, we have quite a few of the same features.
Right.
There's quite a few differences though. In one case, we are, because we're doing that normalization in flight, you can now add additional logic. So a lot of times integration projects start to see a lot of change orders and a lot of technical debt getting added on to the timeline because of two fields that are missing in one of the technologies.
Yeah.
Hey, one system needs a flag for a type in order or whatever else. And it's this one little bit of data that needs to get added. Quite often it's, all right, who's the cheapest hourly rate in the room that's going to take on technical debt? And how do we avoid that altogether? How do we keep the original project timeline and let them run? So we allow you to do that in our orchestration plane in the middle of the systems.
That is, so I have a little bit of story on that front. When we started Fulfillment IQ, initially, most of the conversations I was having with was sales folks, right? Because they want to see if I can bring them leads, right?
100%.
And out of those conversations, the amount of robotics conversations I started having in every single one of their problem, because you got, as you can see, the number of companies that are out here, the ones that are doing innovation, everyone kind of leaned into RESTful APIs, right? And it was very much that SaaS mindset rather than looking at how the standardization in the industry where, we have had, flat file exchanges and marriage missions that were happening, because MHE industry, from a communication connection standpoint, fairly generally standardized. But now you got this whole new breed of companies coming in with a bunch of REST APIs with this philosophy that because I got REST, any company can use it. What they forget on the other side is you are going to show your robot do this amazing thing on the floor, right? The operator is going to be like, I love it. Okay, next step, go talk to IT. Right? He's like, wait in queue like 2 years before I get to that. Or I'm using XYZ WMS, that's tier 1. Let's call it SAP because I don't care for it. You're going to get an answer that's going to be like, yeah, of course we can integrate into that. But because it's REST APIs, it's probably going to be $350,000 before we call it a day. So what you guys have done is become the industry standard for becoming the hub. So yeah, you guys do all this cool stuff through REST APIs. We take it, but now we got the adapters into the big boys. Yeah, 350 one time, but that's okay because now I can enable all of these other guys that can come through the door from a robotics and achieve whatever connection.
So we try to bring standardization where there is no standardization possible, right?
Yeah.
And then I think also when you think about, we don't require an API even to exist. So a lot of times flat files is how you can get data out of systems, right?
Yeah.
I can get it to a CSV file. Great. Our platform can ingest that and turn it into REST calls on the other side, right? And so now it allows you to level up your solutions quickly and bring on other technologies without having to bring on, custom development or let me build my API so then we can go run with robotics, right? How can we just do it now with what we have in the building?
Yeah, I mean, like one of the most common, I'd say maybe a third of our install base is AS400.
That's right.
Right. So you're taking the state-of-the-art tech and connecting it to, AS400, which is
state-of-the-art tech.
Exactly.
I still consider AS400.
Hey, man,
Still
super
runs
performant,
all day,
right?
every day.
Man, I can tell you there are sites that are running out there where I think companies forget that their servers actually sit because the damn thing just keeps running in the background. It just runs.
They love them.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
the only problem is if something does break, the only place to buy parts is probably eBay.
100%.
Exactly. So, but you think about that, those companies think that they can't participate in this high tech revolution, right? But we believe we are fanatical about abstraction. Abstraction is in every single, even in the technology stack we use, it's all about abstraction. And this enables us to hook state-of-the-art stuff to super legacy, the legacy of legacies, right? And for us, that's a pedestrian event.
That is pretty awesome.
And maybe I just want to give a very generic use case of an experience that we had, that I personally had with SVT. And I think this is really common, especially everyone here at Modex is checking out all these robotic solutions, and there's a bunch of them, and there's some amazing robotic solutions. And you go back and you're facing the challenges of labor availability, labor cost, and you do your engineering modeling, and you're like, okay, I could go from 25, 30 picks an hour to 125. The ROI is 8-9 months, and you're like, you put it in front of your CFO, you get the blessing, and you go for it.
It's automatic.
It's absolutely automatic. And then you get into that implementation timeline, and you're like, oh my God. Yes, my WMS said, sure, we have this integration, right? Or yes, we could do this. And you realize it just isn't there.
Right.
And that was a time quite a few years ago where we phoned a friend, and that friend was SVT Robotics. And they came into the room, and we were talking about this before we went live. There was just this calming, literally being in a warehouse conference room where we were going 7 days a week, 20 hours a day, grinding, trying to figure out this problem. And SVT came in, and this calming effect came in, and they were just like, we got this. We got this for you. Now I'm sure it was long hours on your end too. And, getting to the other side of that. But it just goes to show, as you're looking at all these options that are here at Modex or not at Modex, and you're exploring robotics, yes, they serve a great purpose to solve for a lot of issues we're all facing, but you have to think of what happens next. How do you get connected?
Yeah.
And what does that look like?
And connectivity is just the doorway to optimization, right? So
Yeah.
really, when we think about the value prop of our platform, we allow you to connect quickly. We'll allow you to monitor the system so you can always maintain uptime, maintain the value of that system you're trying to bring online.
Right.
And then you can allow you to optimize because now you have access to that data, right? And I got to say, I really appreciate you sharing, the customer side of that, because I can tell you, it means the world to us, right?
Yeah.
That's what we set out to do first
Yeah.
and foremost, is to allow people to go home at 5 on Friday. When
Right.
you're doing these integration projects, right? Like we spend many times on the road away from the families, everything else, when you're trying to bring these systems online, and getting rid of that stress and those challenges so the teams can adopt automation at scale without risking their home time.
Yeah.
It means the world to us. So thank you for sharing that, by the way.
Absolutely. Well, mission accomplished there. And I could tell you, we definitely didn't bring you in early, right? So
Just the right time.
It
Put
was
us in just the right time.
just at the right time. So yeah, I appreciate that. And maybe we could spend some time to that point of, you utilize, you get the connection in place, but what happens next, right? I mean, we talked about how do you ensure things continue to progress in a even in an improved fashion, but that utilization of that data, I think people are still trying to kind of figure out,
right,
what does good look like? How could I use that data to get more improvements?
Yeah, I mean, so the first thing I think a lot of people misunderstand is now we're connected.
Right.
What's the next challenge we got to think about? We got to maintain that system health, right?
Mhm.
Because now we're running automation at the facility, and you were talking about 120, 140 picks an hour from your baseline. Okay, now I have that ROI. That clock's ticking. I need to make sure that we're at that 124 picks all day long. In a lot of automation systems, it's making sure that silent failures aren't happening in your system, right? So a lot of times, maybe you're bad data from a wrong order structure or something like that. One system doesn't like the data that's being exchanged. A lot of times that's silently failing in the background. And then all of a sudden this operation starts to slow down and everything goes quiet. And then somebody calls the help desk and says, nothing's moving. I don't know why. Please help.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
Because they don't have visibility to what's happening on the floor. They don't have visibility into what's happening in the integration. And so that's really what we've focused on recently. A lot of our product releases and next few roadmap releases is monitoring. How do we give you real-time updates and understanding of how the system's running? So we'll be releasing in the next few weeks, actually, we'll be launching monitoring. So you'll have the ability to get a text message to your phone when an error is happening on the integration, right? So now the ops manager that's standing on the floor that maybe doesn't have line of sight, visibility, now get immediate awareness to they may have a problem. So we can start working with the teams to resolve it before we're ever down, right? So we had a customer recently, the firewall randomly changed on one of the technologies on site. It was a technology that needed about a 2-hour buffer to maintain optimization.
Right.
We were able to see it immediately when it happened. That alert went to the customer and also to the vendor. They were able to get up and running before operations ever knew it was happening. And funny story, AK and I were actually touring the floor with the customer while this incident was happening. And our team told about it after the fact. So those are the moments that we really get excited about.
No idea
that
was going on.
Yeah.
Because the system was still physically running.
Right.
But there was this event, they wouldn't have seen it for an hour probably.
Right.
So we get back to the airport and we learn about this, like, because we have a Slack channel of all the errors that are flown. And we're like, wait a minute, that time's like we were there. And
it was happening at that time.
And you think about it, like what happens there is when it goes down, people are wondering, okay, is this a Manhattan problem? Is this a what is it WMS? Is it, the robot? And then the phone tree of accusations runs for an hour.
Calling all cars, and everybody knows this on the phone.
Yeah.
And everybody's trying to do the right by the customer, right?
Right.
But it's how do we get to the truth quickly, right?
Exactly. I've been through it, and again, not as much on the robotics front or what you would call robotics today, more on the MHE front, where you get on that call, you have 17 vendors, one person from the company trying to figure out where the actual problem happens to be, but there is no centralized monitoring that's actually telling you what actually failed.
Yeah.
And been through it a few times.
I don't know if you've seen our logging, but like when a fault hits, you can double click into the fault and it will display all the flowchart of the code. And there's exclamation points along the trace. And you know exactly what vendor and what line of code or what exception actually happened. And there's like a journal where it's like you can see down to the millisecond. It'll say at 200 milliseconds this happened. This payload, what's the payload? It shows basically everything you could need. But the triage person doesn't have to be a software expert. They just know that this is the softbot that threw the error. And then you have the full trace. So when the software engineers want to dig in, they can do their job.
Yep.
Without like saying, oh man, well, we didn't capture the logs. So wait till it happens again. Wait until we have another 5-hour downtime event.
Agreed. Just going beyond that integration front and maybe touching a little bit on orchestration.
Absolutely.
So you also help with orchestration. Is that
Yes.
accurate, right? Like, so you got, robots trying to talk to the MHE, something's coming, or if this event happens, do this on the other side on this robot.
Mhm.
Is that accurate? That's something that you end up designing inside the application, or the customer can actually design it themselves?
Yeah, so we're not. Let me be clear about what we talk about orchestration. There's a lot of levels of orchestration in the system. There's like multi-system orchestration.
Yep.
There's multi-robot orchestration. There's multi-fleet orchestration. There's a lot of different places. And maybe I could illustrate with a few use cases where we typically see the orchestration. A lot of times, the most simple orchestration that needs to happen between systems is like that data addition or subtraction or changes to data between systems, right? So I'm missing a field, I need to add it, et cetera. But a lot of times what's happening now is I have maybe one technology doing pallets in my warehouse. Maybe I have a technology doing eaches in my warehouse. My WMS has got a feed of work to be done, but maybe I don't want to customize the WMS to then send it to the right location. So we can do something simple like just routing that information and then confirming it back to the WMS. So WMS doesn't have to take on technical debt or customization, so they can upgrade much faster, stay forever young with their customers, right? But now we can allow routing to the right systems, confirm those back. Or to your point, maybe I have a system that needs to hand off to another, and then we can say, okay, we can take that confirmation message, broker that to another system. And so now that system says, oh, I have a pallet in case, I can take that and run it or load it into the truck, whatever it may be. So orchestrations between systems, but we don't have a visualization layer like multi-robot fleet or anything like that. We have some great partners that do that, and we want to let them be awesome at that. And we just want to broker the data to those organizations so they can be successful.
I mean, things like, let's just say, if there was a pick short event.
That's right.
Right? That happens. When that pick short event happens, let's say someone like a gather.ai that's got the drone. Can you do that orchestration to say, hey, I see a user do a pick short 100%. On one side, gather, can you go fly up and actually check the inventory status in that given
It's a
location?
great use case. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if that's a real use case, but I just thought.
We would see the pick short event. So because our system is publishing all of these normalized data structures and the events, we can react to that in real time.
Beautiful.
So instead of us requiring another system like the WMS to have to then take on logic to build a task, like the cycle count, because that's really what we're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
Go run a cycle count on the location. Yeah. Now we can just intercept it in flight and say, echo it back to gather now, and then go execute. And now their cycle count comes back, and we can give that to the WMS because the WMS is your source of record in that building, right? We're not changing that. No. And we want to let the systems be great at what they're doing, right? And just empower them with data to be better.
And maybe to double click a little bit on that use case, because this is something that there are OEMs, parts that are out there that are very much an open framework, right? Like that from a framework standpoint, you can go instruct down to the robot level what you want it to do. Versus you have a lot of really good companies, but the reason why they are good is because they got that Apple mindset of my ecosystem. I keep it closed because it's just perfect. Now at that point, all you have access to is to the system, not down to that robot saying what logic looks. You manage both of them. Where do you find and where do you want the industry to go? That's the other question.
I think there's room for both types of ecosystems.
Android and Apple's.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you need both, right? You look at like market share of Apple, using that metaphor. In the US, Apple has the highest market share, but everywhere else in the world, Android's the winner.
Exactly.
Right? And so I think it's depending on what the use case is and what's the optimal system to solve, right? A vertically integrated closed ecosystem makes a lot of sense for high automation, very high throughput systems that are very close trade-off. And you have a lot of micro operations that are happening in a sequence. And there's some great systems out there that just deploy that. But then there's something that happens at the edge. Maybe it's transport away from the system. Maybe it's additional pack out or things like that need to get decorated on that solution.
Exactly.
And that's where we provide connectivity, right? So look, I think customers want to be able to use best of breed technology to solve their challenges for whatever is out there. And we see it every year, right? We come to Modex or ProMat and you see this explosion of new technologies. Everybody's trying to solve the problem statements in a really cool, innovative way. We want to allow companies to adopt the best of breed technologies to solve those challenges as best they can. So we participate with both, but I think there's room for both in the space and there will be both going forward. It's just how do we allow them to interact with each other?
So we call this the layer cake problem, right? So if you think about ERP, WMS, all the way down to PLC, right? Well, some technologies have really thick layers and some are thin, right?
Yep.
And sometimes if you have a stack here, the technology one is this thick, technology two is this thick.
Yep.
They don't line up with the layer cake over here. So there's like this short, right? This gap. And so our bias is we want it to be our portion. We want to do the least amount. We never want our partners to have to delete value from their stack.
Yes.
Like we want to empower the full power of their stack. So we bias towards thin and go down as needed rather than bias towards thick.
Yep.
Right. And this, for us, this is not just a technical enablement, it's a commercial enablement. Right. And we want companies to be able to deploy their products as they see it, but also allow for that bridge of technology or that technical bridge that will allow them to actually go to market and have product market fit.
Well, makes complete sense. And maybe, or from me, just like one last one. On the flip side, so we talk about the robots, but at the end of the day, you need to orchestrate with a WMS, with a WES, something of that nature. And my experiences on that front, definitely tier one systems, right? And now they are evolving to having better robotic frameworks and more partnerships. How do you kind of overcome some of the challenges with tier ones, specifically tier ones? Because tier twos, I think they are way more flexible in, they want to win more business. They can bring in a lot more. But when you get to tier ones, there is professional services,
right,
the cost of doing things, and you have to go to these clients and actually say, hey, you're going to have to send X $100,000 as an example just to build an SVT integration? Or do you have more of a partnership strategy with some of the big boys?
Yeah, the short answer is we go partner with those companies.
Yeah.
So we've directly engaged with all the tier one WMSs and also WES companies as well. Like our goal is let's proactively build something together. As AK said, let's maximize the value of their stack, right? Like they're probably missing some data that could provide additional value in the solution. So can we broker that to them in real time, or can we enable them to go connect to other systems? So we've gone in partnered with a lot of those companies to just proactively create a connector. So you'll see it in our library, atlas.svtrobotics.com. We have over 70 plus connections in there already in the marketplace to a lot of those companies that you're mentioning.
So
the nuance of a connector though, right? Like a connector, because you can do so much, right? Yeah, you might have a connector to orchestrate a pick task as an example, but all of a sudden now you need to do a cycle count task connector. So when you say connectors, we are talking about a broad library into these tier ones, or are we like small and building as the customers come?
In some cases, we focused on pick, pack, and ship maybe as the workflows, because that's what we see mostly in the marketplace today. But even on our website, you'll even see the documentation down to this is the type of data we're brokering from this connector. So inventory, location data, transport tasks, pick tasks, cycle count tasks for that matter, or any other types of IoT systems. That's a lot of things, like just getting telemetry on maybe like door rolls in my building. So all the different data types.
So important point. Like some people think we're trying to get rid of integrators.
Yeah.
In fact, that is not the case. We are a product company, not a services company.
That's correct.
And like when these...
You want integrators to use you?
Yes, absolutely. In fact, we have quite a few. And on the WMS side, we work with some of the biggest WMS integrators because, as you know, like some of these WMSs, you have to be behind the wall to customize, right? To actually build like a data shim.
Yep.
And sometimes these are highly customized. And the best thing for us to do is work with the integrator that actually deployed that to say, okay, these are the hooks. So we want the integrators to actually flourish as well. And that goes for the automation integrators as well. Like we've last year we started a beta program for them to use our low code environment to build connectors. And we've onboarded what are we up to now? 5. Yeah, right. So, and they've trained, and it's been an amazing experience. But so to me, this is not a zero-sum game.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right. And we believe that if we get rid of all the rework of writing stuff over and over again, then we're going to free up all this capability. And if you think about what is bottlenecking this industry, it's 2 resources that are bottlenecking. Number 1 is software engineers working for integrators and automation providers. Number 2 is the IT departments.
I was just going to say IT departments.
Those guys, so they get a bad rap, right? Our platform is actually tailor-made to support IT.
Right.
And they are really, when you look at it, the integrator and the IT persona, that's what we're made for. And we believe that if we can unlock value and enable IT departments to do way more.
They want to do way more.
Yes, absolutely.
They want to
they
do
get
more.
a bad rep. I come from that universe.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, they get a bad rep, but there is a reason why.
Yeah.
Because when that system goes down, they need to do so much due diligence, so much, monitoring, so much of effort that goes into it. Because we know that when that site goes down for an hour, there is $100,000 per hour that my business is losing. And who's next on the line? Mine. So yeah, of course, I'm going to spend more time into making sure and doing my due diligence. And that's what the net effect happens to be, is why it is slow. So when you can get a good toolkit that you can actually rely on, why would they say no?
Absolutely. And we're there to empower them. We will even host the environment in our cloud, right? So, if you don't have those resources, so those teams absolutely want to do more. They're trying to do more and more every day. But the diversity of technology is growing every day. The number of technologies, the different problem states that they have to solve is growing. And so how do you staff for that?
Agreed.
Right?
And be bulletproof on cybersecurity, right? Onboard all this tech, all this bespoke code, and be bulletproof on cybersecurity, right? It's an unfair ask, but this was in our mind since the beginning of unlocking IT's ability to execute.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Guys, I could go for another hour with you guys. You just brought up cloud. I think we are going to need another episode.
Absolutely.
Go over this, but this has been phenomenal.
Absolutely.
I think we went nerd probably 3.5 out of 5, right?
I think we can go a notch higher as well.
Yeah.
That cybersecurity and cloud subject, I would really like to, because I don't want to go there right now, but cloud as a conversation, especially in machine orchestration, a lot of businesses still believe in keeping things on-prem because of latency and whatnot, and edge compute. And how does that play into some of this? We'll get into it. We need a special episode for that.
Absolutely.
But I love it, guys. Thank you.
Outstanding.
Absolutely.
It's really fun, man. It's amazing. We love, this is our life's work. So we love talking about it.
Amazing. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Maybe just share with the audience real quick, where's the best way to go and follow you on social, if it's LinkedIn or X or wherever it might be. And obviously we'll put websites and everything in the show notes.
SVTRobotics.com is a great way to go. You can get to all the social links there. Also, if you're interested in how we can provide rapid connectivity to your systems today, atlas.svtrobotics.com is active library of all active connections and things we can enable.
Yeah, create a login. It's really easy. But you will see every single piece of tech in all the combinations and permutations that are possible. You can just browse for days.
There's 800 plus applications available today.
Beautiful, guys. Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks again, guys.
Awesome.
Thank you for having us.
As we bring another episode to a close here at Modex, we want to extend our gratitude to GNP Construction for their sponsorship of the podcast. If you're in need of top-notch, all-inclusive material handling solutions for logistics and commercial real estate, look no further than GNP Construction. Be sure to visit GANDPconstruction.com to discover your one-stop shop for turnkey MHE integrations.
Hi, I'm Leonard, CEO and co-founder of Fulfillment IQ, and I'm here with
Dan Call, CRO and partner at Fulfillment IQ. We're the team behind the Ecom Logistics podcast. Our mission is to provide you with genuine insights from our work alongside logistics leaders to help you improve your supply chain.
In the Ecom Logistics podcast, we share the knowledge and the insights we've gained from working alongside amazing brands, retailers, 3PLs, and VCs, so you can make the most out of your supply chain journey.
If you like what you're hearing, we'd truly appreciate your support with a 5-star rating on your favorite podcasting channel. Your feedback not only keeps us going, but also helps others find the podcast. If you think Fulfillment IQ can assist you, or if you have an idea related to logistics, just reach out to us on LinkedIn. We're always up for a chat and ready to explore new possibilities together.
Stay tuned to the Ecom Logistics podcast on your favorite podcast platform for fresh and practical insights into e-commerce and logistics. Until next time, let's keep making a difference.